Bully grabs black teacher by the throat in a lab. Her millionaire husband destroys his future forever. The sound of her body slamming against the chemistry bench echoed through the lab like thunder. Dozens of cell phones instantly rose, recording the moment. 17-year-old Tyler Brennan violently grabbed Professor Diana Washington by the neck and pressed her against the experiment table. "Now you're going to torspec me," shouted the boy, his fingers squeezing the throat of the 34-year-old woman who had become his obsession of hatred over the past 2 months. The room exploded in hysterical screams. Some female students were crying, other students were filming in shock. But what no one expected was Professor Diana's reaction. She wasn't afraid. Her eyes remained calm, almost calculated, as if that terrible moment was exactly what she had been waiting for weeks. Diana Washington was new to Westbridge Academy, the most elite private school in town. She had arrived mid-semester to replace the former chemistry teacher, bringing with her a brilliant reputation from Stanford and a professional demeanor that intimidated even her most experienced colleagues. But Tyler Brennan wasn't intimidated by anything. The son of Richard Brennan, an oil tycoon and one of the most powerful men in the state, the boy grew up believing that the world existed to serve him. At 17, he had already accumulated suspensions for assault, drug use, and harassment, all forgotten after generous donations from his father to the school. "Tyler, let her go now!" shouted student Jennifer from the back of the room, but no one dared to approach him. What began as whispered racist taunts during class had quickly escalated. Tyler couldn't stand a black woman correcting him publicly, questioning his answers, or worse, treating him with the same polite coldness she gave all the other students. 2 weeks ago, he had jokingly pushed her in the hallway. Last week, he spread obscene rumors about her on the school's WhatsApp groups. Yesterday, hairspray painted racist insults on her car. Diana had reported each incident to the administration. Each time, she received the same rehearsed response. "Tyler comes from a family that is important to our institution. I'm sure you can work this out like adults." Now, with the boy's hands on her throat and dozens of witnesses filming, Diana did something that surprised everyone. She smiled. It was a small, almost imperceptible smile, but there was something about it that made Tyler hesitate for a split second. It was the smile of someone who had just received exactly the gift they had been waiting for. "You can let go of me now, Tyler," she said calmly, her voice steady despite the pressure on her neck. "You've already given me everything I needed." The boy was confused by her serenity, but his anger was far from gone. "What are you talking about? You're just to be careful what you say next," Diana interrupted. And there was something in her voice, an authority that didn't come solely from college degrees, as Tyler pressed her against the counter, completely blinded by arrogance. He had no idea he was being filmed by 23 different cell phones. He didn't know that every racist slur, every violent gesture, every second of his hateful outburst was being documented in high definition. And he definitely didn't know who the man was that Diana Washington had discreetly called 30 seconds before the assault began. A man who at that very moment was turning Tyler Brennan's life into a permanent nightmare. If you've ever felt the injustice of being underestimated because of your color or background, this twist story will affect you in a way you may not be prepared for. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happened to Tyler Brennan in the next 20 minutes not only changed his life, but proved that some people learn the hard way that there are very real consequences for their actions. Videos of the assault spread like wildfire on the internet before Tyler even let go of Diana completely. Within minutes, justice for Diana was trending on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, with millions of views and angry comments demanding the boy's immediate expulsion. But Tyler Brennan wasn't the least bit concerned. "Relax, guys," he laughed in the school athletes' WhatsApp group, sending memes mocking the situation. "My dad already called the principal. Tomorrow, this whole thing will be gone, and so will the problematic teacher." And he wasn't wrong. Richard Brennan wasn't just one of Westbridge Academy's biggest donors. He practically financed half of the school's sports facilities. His influence extended far beyond the school walls, reaching local politicians, judges, and business people throughout the region. The next morning, as Diana was organizing her things in the teacher's lounge, Principal Peterson appeared with an awkward expression. "Diana, we need to talk," he said, closing the door. We've received some concerns about yesterday's incident. Concerns? Diana raised an eyebrow, her voice maintaining the disconcerting calm that had intrigued Tyler. A student physically assaulted me in front of 30 witnesses. What kind of concerns? Peterson cleared his throat nervously. Well, some parents have questioned whether perhaps you provoked the situation in some way. Tyler is a good kid, you know. He comes from an exemplary family. The silence that followed was deafening. Diana studied the principal's face with the same clinical intensity she used to analyze chemical reactions. I see, she said finally. And what is your recommendation? Perhaps you should consider transferring to another school for the next few years, of course, until Tyler graduates. Diana nodded slowly as if processing the information, but Peterson couldn't see what was really going through her mind. Memories of other times when powerful men had tried to silence her, other bosses who had underestimated her determination. She had grown up in the Detroit foster care system, facing discrimination and violence since childhood. She earned a scholarship to Stanford by fighting against teachers who doubted her intellectual ability. She completed her PhD in chemistry while working 3 jobs to support herself. And now at 34, she had built a life that no Tyler Brennan could have imagined in his wildest nightmares. I need a few days to decide, Diana replied calmly. That afternoon, Tyler posted a series of Instagram stories mocking the situation when you're a daddy's boy and can do anything. Rich life, no consequences. In the videos, he imitated Diana's voice, made racist gestures, and laughed with his friends about how he'd put the teacher in her place. What Tyler didn't know was that every post, every message, every moment of arrogance was being carefully documented by someone who would turn his arrogance into evidence. Diana came home that night to find her husband, Dr. James Mitchell, working in his home office. The 38-year-old man with premature gray hair and intense eyes looked up when she entered. "How was your day?" he asked, but something in Diana's expression made him close his laptop immediately. "Tyler Brennan has decided to accelerate our timeline," she said simply. James leaned forward, interested. As CEO of Mitchell & Associates, one of the largest financial consulting firms in the country, he was used to complex strategies and corporate twists and turns. But when it came to his wife, he'd learned that Diana Washington Mitchell operated on a completely different level. "What kind of acceleration?" he asked. Diana showed him the videos on her phone, both the assault and Tyler's arrogant stories. "He gave us exactly what we needed, clear evidence, multiple witnesses, and better yet, he continues to incriminate himself on social media." James smiled slowly. "And the father?" "Richard Brennan just made the biggest mistake of his life," Diana replied, her eyes shining with a determination that reminded James why he'd fallen in love with her in the first place. "He's using his influence to protect his son, thinking he's dealing with a defenseless teacher, but he doesn't know he's dealing with Dr. Diana Washington Mitchell," James added. "Exactly. And he definitely doesn't know she's married to the man who controls the investments of half the companies in this city." While Tyler slept peacefully that night, convinced that his family had solved yet another little problem, Diana and James worked until dawn, reviewing documents, making discreet phone calls, and activating a network of contacts that Tyler Brennan never dreamed existed. The boy's arrogance had been his social and financial death sentence. He just didn't know it yet. Every racist insult Tyler posted online was being archived by specialized lawyers. Every veiled threat he made in the school hallways was documented by classmates who secretly sent information to Diana. Every time Richard Brennan used his influence to cover up the case, he created more evidence of obstruction and abuse of power. As father and son celebrated their apparent victory, they'd no idea they were walking straight into a trap that would destroy not only Tyler's reputation, but the Brennan family's entire fortune and influence once and for all. Over the next week, Tyler Brennan was in his element. His assault on Professor Diana had become legendary among his privileged peers, and he never missed an opportunity to account it in increasingly exaggerated detail. "You should have seen the look of terror in her eyes when I grabbed her neck," Tyler boasted in an Instagram story, mimicking the gesture as his friends laughed. Arrogant teacher learned who's boss at this school. In the WhatsApp groups of the student elite, the messages were even worse. Tyler shared racist memes about Diana, calling her a lab monkey and a chemical experiment gone wrong. Each message was captured in screenshots by students who secretly sent them to Diana. What Tyler didn't know was that every poisonous word he typed was being meticulously documented by a team of lawyers specializing in hate crimes discreetly hired by James Mitchell. Richard Brennan, meanwhile, decided to step up his campaign to get Diana out of school. On Monday, he showed up in person at Westbridge Academy, marching straight to Principal Peterson's office with the confidence of someone who owns half the world. "I want that woman out of my school by Friday," Richard declared without even sitting down. "I don't care what excuse you come up with, incompetence, insubordination, anything will do." "Mr. Brennan," Peterson stammered nervously, "I understand your concern, but firing a teacher without just cause could lead to legal problems. Legal trouble." Richard laughed loudly. "Peterson, I financed 3 political campaigns in this town, including the district attorneys. My company employs half the parents at this school. Do you think anyone is going to sue me for protecting my son from a problematic teacher?" Meanwhile, Diana went about her duties as usual, maintaining the same serene demeanor that had baffled Tyler. But behind that apparent calm, she and James were orchestrating something that would make the Brennan rethink every arrogant decision they had ever made. James had used his network of contacts to uncover devastating information about Richard Brennan's business dealings. As CEO of a financial consulting firm, he had access to reports that showed questionable practices at Brennan companies, aggressive tax avoidance, suspicious government contracts, and a network of offshore companies that circumvented environmental regulations. "Look at this." James showed Diana a folder full of documents on the kitchen table. "Richard Brennan isn't just a wealthy businessman. He's a corporate criminal who's never been caught." Diana examined the papers with growing interest. Tax evasion, fraudulent bids, covered up environmental pollution. How long do you think it would take the FBI to prosecute all this? With the right evidence and the right amount of public pressure, James smiled. 6 months to completely destroy his empire. But the most brilliant move was yet to come. Diana had discovered something even James hadn't expected. She wasn't just a chemistry professor with a PhD from Stanford. During her doctoral years, she'd worked as a consultant for the U.S. Department of Justice, analyzing chemical evidence in corporate fraud cases. Her real professional name was Dr. Diana Washington Mitchell, one of the country's leading experts in detecting environmental crimes through chemical analysis. Her resume included the case that had brought down 3 major pharmaceutical corporations and the scandal that exposed water contamination in Flint, Michigan. Tyler Brennan physically assaulted the woman responsible for putting half of the country's corrupt CEOs in prison, Diana said calmly, organizing her own files, and his father is trying to intimidate the same person who has direct access to the FBI, EPA, and federal prosecutor's office. On Wednesday, the situation escalated further. Tyler posted a video on TikTok mimicking Diana being strangled using a black doll as a prop. The video had over 50,000 views in a few hours, with comments celebrating Fellis and Tyler had taught the arrogant teacher. Richard, proud of his son's creativity, shared the video in his own business groups, adding the caption, "My boy knows how to deal with problematic employees." What father and son didn't know was that the video was being analyzed by FBI hate crime experts, whom James had discreetly contacted through his contacts at the Department of Justice. "They're making our job easier," Diana noted, watching Tyler's video for the 10th time. "Every social media post is further evidence of a hate crime. Every message from the father is further proof of conspiracy and intimidation." On Friday, Director Peterson finally succumbed to Richard Brennan's pressure and called Diana in for a final meeting. "Diana, I can't put this off any longer," he said, avoiding eye contact. "I have received direct orders from the board of directors. Your dismissal is effective Monday." Diana nodded calmly. "I understand perfectly, Principal Peterson. One question. Are you aware that firing an employee for racial reasons is a federal crime punishable by up to 10 years in prison?" Peterson paused. "What are you talking about?" "The report I sent to the FBI today documenting every threat, every political pressure, and every act of intimidation Richard Brennan used to force me out of the school," Diana replied calmly. "The report also includes the 47 racist messages Tyler posted on social media." The 3 videos of him simulating violence against me, and the recordings of our conversations where you admit to firing me due to pressure from a donor. The silence in the office was deafening. Diana stood up, adjusting her purse on her shoulder. By the way, she added with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, my husband James just sent a detailed report on Brennan Industries' tax practices to the IRS, and I myself delivered evidence of the company's environmental crimes to the EPA. As Peterson sat paralyzed in his chair, Diana walked calmly to the door. Tyler and Richard Brennan had spent 2 weeks celebrating their victory over a simple teacher. But what they didn't know was that that teacher had spent those same 2 weeks meticulously building the case that would destroy not only their reputation, but the entire fortune and freedom that the family had accumulated through decades of corruption and arrogance. The bomb was set, the detonators were in place, and Diana Washington Mitchell, the woman Tyler Brennan had strangled thinking she was just a defenseless teacher, was about to show the whole world who was really in control of this story. The Brennans' worst nightmare was just 72 hours away, and they had no idea of the tsunami that was about to destroy their lives forever. Monday morning arrived with the force of a hurricane for the Brennan family. Tyler woke up to his phone exploding with notifications. But this time they weren't compliments from friends. Urgent. Student assaults black teacher at elite school. FBI investigates hate crime was the headline in every major newspaper in the country. Video of the assault was looping on CNN, Fox News, and every news channel with racial crime experts analyzing every second of the violence. Dad. Tyler ran into Richard's office, his face pale with terror. The newspapers, they're saying the FBI is going to arrest me. Richard Brennan was frozen in front of multiple screens, watching his decades-long reputation being destroyed in real time. His phone rang incessantly. Journalists, investors, politicians he had previously considered allies, all wanting to publicly distance themselves from the family. That's impossible, Richard muttered, typing frantically on his computer. I controlled the situation. The teacher was fired. Nothing was supposed to leak, but the nightmare was just beginning. At 10 a.m., federal agents showed up at Brennan Industries with search and seizure warrants. 3 FBI vans, 2 EPA vans, and a team from the Internal Revenue Service surrounded the corporate building, confiscating computers, files, and financial documents from 2 decades. Mr. Brennan, said Special Agent Martinez, showing him the warrant, you are under investigation for tax evasion, bid rigging, environmental crimes, and obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent. Richard read the warrant with trembling hands. The document cited evidence provided by a federal expert, incorporate crime, and listed specific violations that he thought were hidden forever in offshore accounts and falsified contracts. Meanwhile, Tyler discovered that his life at Westbridge Academy was over. Not only was he expelled immediately, but no school or university in the country would accept him. His name was being associated nationally with racial violence, and every educational institution feared the negative repercussions of admitting him. How did they know everything? Tyler asked desperately when Richard returned home after being released on bail. Dad, you said you had everything under control. It was then that Richard received a call that made his blood run cold. Hello, Mr. Brennan, said a calm female voice on the other end of the line. This is Dr. Diana Washington Mitchell. I believe you know my wife, Diana. How did you get my private number? My husband is James Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell & Associates. You may recognize the name. Our firm manages the investments of half of your business partners. Or rather, it did. Richard felt his legs go weak. James Mitchell was a legend in the financial world, controlling billions in corporate investments. What do you want? Richard stammered. I want you to understand exactly who your son has decided to mess with, Diana replied coldly. I am Dr. Diana Washington Mitchell, federal expert in corporate crime. Over the past 5 years, I have helped the FBI prosecute 23 CEOs for environmental fraud. My chemical analysis was responsible for $340 million in fines and 67 years of prison time combined. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Every company your family owns, every contract you've signed, every penny you've hidden in tax havens. It's all been analyzed by me and handed over to the appropriate authorities. Diana continued. But the most entertaining part, your own son has perfectly documented all the hate crimes on social media. We have 47 racist posts, 3 videos simulating violence and recordings where you admit to using political influence to persecute a federal teacher. Richard slumped in his chair, realizing the magnitude of the mistake he had made. You attacked the wrong wife, Mr. Brennan, Diana said with a smile that showed in her voice. And now you're going to find out that some people have resources your arrogance can't even imagine. The next morning, the consequences multiplied exponentially. Brennan Industries lost all government contracts. James Mitchell had used his influence to ensure that no public agency would ever do business with the company again. Investors withdrew $200 million in financing within 24 hours. 3 banks simultaneously cancelled lines of credit. Tyler, meanwhile, discovered that his racial assault had become a national case study. Universities, civil rights organizations, and social justice experts used his name as an example of toxic privilege and racist violence. His academic and professional future had been permanently destroyed. How did a simple teacher achieve all this? Tyler cried in his father's lap, both watching their fortune evaporate on television. Richard now knew the answer. Diana Washington Mitchell was not a simple teacher. She was one of the most powerful people in the American justice system, married to one of the most influential financiers in the country. And they had completely underestimated a woman who had dedicated her entire life to destroying men just like them. We were the idiots, Richard muttered, watching his $500 million company collapse financially. We thought we were bullying a defenseless teacher. But in fact, we declared war on 2 of the most powerful people we could have chosen as enemies. While father and son mourned their defeat, Diana calmly organized her things on her last day as a teacher at Westbridge Academy, but she smiled because she knew that her real career as a federal specialist was just waiting for her call to return. The bomb had exploded. Tyler Brennan, who thought he could assault a black woman without consequences, discovered that some victims have enough resources to completely rewrite the fate of their attackers. And Richard Brennan learned in the most painful way possible that underestimating a woman because of her color or profession can be the last mistake a powerful man makes in his life. 6 months later, Diana Washington Mitchell was exactly where she always belonged. Not in a classroom being disrespected by spoiled teenagers, but in the FBI office in Washington, D.C., leading the largest corporate fraud operation of the decade. Dr. Washington Mitchell, said the FBI director, handing her a folder. Your analysis of the Brennan case has opened investigations in 12 states. We want you to lead the new task force against corporate environmental crimes. Diana smiled, adjusting her impeccable blazer. Her promotion to assistant director had been announced in every trade magazine with articles celebrating the brilliant scientist who destroyed an empire of corruption with surgical precision. James, now with multi-million-dollar government contracts after his collaboration with the authorities, had become one of the most respected voices in financial compliance. Together, they were a couple who redefined the meaning of intellectual power. Meanwhile, Tyler Brennan discovered that some choices have permanent consequences. No university in the country would accept him. His name was forever associated with racial violence and toxic privilege. Part-time jobs were his only option as employers did basic Google searches before hiring. You don't understand, Tyler would plead during job interviews. I've changed. It was just a teenage mistake. But the internet never forgets, especially when civil rights experts use his case as an example in universities, documentaries, and lectures on how privilege can destroy lives when confronted with reality. Richard Brennan was serving his 15 years sentence for tax fraud, corruption, and obstruction of justice. Federal prison was a place where name and money didn't mean protection. They just made you a bigger target. My dad used to say he ran half this town, Tyler confessed to one of the few friends who still spoke to him. Now he shares a cell with a guy who stole cars. And me? I work washing dishes at the same restaurant we used to have dinner at every Friday. Westbridge Academy underwent a complete overhaul. Principal Peterson was fired. 3 board members resigned and the school implemented strict anti-racial discrimination policies. A scholarship was created in Diana's name, intended for low-income students interested in science. The most ironic part, Tyler would sometimes pass by the school where he had studied on the bus, seeing young black, Latino, and poor kids walking the same hallways that once only the children of the elite had access to. You know what hurts the most? Tyler asked the court-mandated therapist he was required to see. She never called me names back. She never yelled. She never lost her composure. She just destroyed my entire life by maintaining the class I never had. The truth was that Diana Washington Mitchell had turned a moment of pure racial violence into a nationalism about consequences. Every university that rejected Tyler, every employer who dismissed him, every person who recognized him on the street and looked away. All of this was a direct result of 47 seconds of arrogance filmed in high definition. The irony, Diana commented during an interview with Time magazine, is that Tyler gave me exactly what I needed to expose not only him, but an entire system of family corruption that had lasted for decades. He thought he was silencing me. But in fact, he gave me the loudest microphone I've ever had. Richard Brennan had lost $340 million in fines and forfeitures. Tyler had lost any chance of a respectable academic or professional future. And Diana, she had gained a national platform to fight corporate injustice and become a symbol of how to respond to discrimination with superior intelligence. The best revenge, Diana said in her lectures, is never to stoop to the level of those who have attacked you. It is to rise so high that they can only see you if they look up. Tyler Brennan tried to destroy a teacher he thought was vulnerable, but he discovered in the most painful way possible that some people carry enough power to rewrite the fate of those who underestimate them. He learned that true strength does not come from last names or bank accounts. It comes from intelligence, preparation, and the patience to turn injustice into absolute justice. If you've ever been underestimated because of your color, origin, or social status, leave a comment about how you reacted and subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that the best revenge will always be the success your enemies never imagined you could achieve.